The light stayed on. Every night, Henry walked to the porch and turned on the light. It was a small, ordinary act, yet it carried all the weight of a lifetime. The house had aged with him, paint peeling in thin ribbons along the eaves, wooden steps groaning with age, windows clouded with the soft dust of years. Yet the porch light always glowed, steady and quiet, as though it understood the solemn rhythm of his days. It had begun for his son, David, a boy who had once filled the house with laughter that bounced off the walls and made ordinary mornings feel extraordinary. David had left one evening after an argument that neither Henry nor Eleanor ever fully remembered, perhaps about college, perhaps about a path David wanted to walk alone. The specifics no longer mattered. What remained was the echo of a slammed door, the crunch of tires on gravel, and the profound stillness that followed. At first, the light was meant to be a signal, a subtle beacon saying, "I am here. You may return." But it had grown into something more, something sacred. It became Henry's silent vigil, a ritual he could not abandon, a devotion that outlasted the years of silence that followed. Eleanor, his wife, had noticed from the beginning. She never mocked it, never scolded him, though her brow furrowed sometimes in quiet concern. But she understood. The light was more than a bulb and a fixture, it was a promise Henry could not put into words. Every evening, he climbed the small step to the porch, twisted the switch, and let the soft glow spill across the wooden steps. The light illuminated more than the porch, it illuminated hope, faith, and the undying persistence of a father's love. The seasons passed, folding over themselves like worn pages in a beloved book. Spring brought the scent of damp earth and blooming lilacs that leaned into the windows. Summer carried the soft buzz of cicadas and the warmth of sunlight pooling on the porch boards. Fall came with its brittle leaves, rustling underfoot and whispering the passage of time. Winter arrived with frost biting into the edges of the world, painting the steps white and leaving icicles hanging from the gutters. Through every season, the light remained unwavering, as though the very act of shining could defy time itself. Henry often imagined David somewhere far away, living a life unknown to him, perhaps thinking little of the small house at the end of the quiet road. Yet the father could not stop. He knew that waiting did not require a response, waiting required only the willingness to keep hope alive. And so the light stayed on. When Eleanor grew ill, the rhythm of the household changed. Her voice softened, grew fragile, like leaves quivering in a gentle wind. Her steps faltered, her hands shook while pouring tea or folding laundry. Henry tended to her, carrying her carefully through the tasks of daily life, though words often failed him. He learned to speak through small gestures, the careful folding of her blanket, the quiet opening of the door to the porch light she loved, the steady warmth of his hand resting lightly on hers. Her passing was slow, gentle, inevitable. Henry watched as her body grew smaller, each breath a reminder of how much he had loved her, how much they had shared. When she left, the house settled into a heavier silence, and the porch light became his only companion in the dark. He replaced the bulb when it dimmed, polished the glass cover until it glimmered faintly in the night, and carried on the ritual with the quiet reverence of a man who understood that some acts are more than habit, they are devotion made manifest. Years pressed on, folding Henry into their rhythm. His hands trembled, his back ached, and steps he had once taken with ease became careful, measured movements. Yet the light stayed on. Even when the world changed, neighbors moved, streets were repaved, children grew up and left, the house at the end of the quiet road remained, anchored by a single glow in the dark. Henry did not speak of David aloud for years. The neighbors only saw a father who never gave up, a man who carried hope as though it were a living thing. They whispered among themselves, some with admiration, some with pity. But Henry did not care for their opinions. The light existed for him, and for David, and for no one else. It pulsed like a heartbeat across the years, a rhythm that outlasted time itself. Eventually, Henry grew too old to climb the steps safely. A young neighbor helped replace the bulb when needed, a boy curious about the glowing porch that had outlasted the years. Henry taught him carefully, wordlessly, the importance of keeping the light steady. It was not just light, it was love, patience, and faith in a son who might one day return. One morning, Henry did not rise from his chair by the window. The neighbors discovered him quietly, passed among them with the respect reserved for those who lived lives of quiet devotion. The porch light still glowed. The bulb burned steadily through every night, illuminating the steps Henry could no longer climb. Years passed. The story of the light faded into a kind of local legend. People spoke softly of the man who had waited, of the faith he carried silently through decades. Children learned to point it out from passing cars, their parents explaining that some loves endure in ways unseen, in gestures that speak more than words. Then, one winter evening, long after Henry had gone, the car appeared on the gravel drive of the old house. A man stepped out, tall, worn with age, eyes soft but lined with the weight of years. David. He had come home. He had not intended to return for a lifetime. The letters, the memories, the echoes of his childhood home had faded into distant corners of his mind. Yet the house called to him in the quietest of ways, through the memory of his mother's gentle insistence that the light would always be on, through the stories he had half remembered, through the aching emptiness that had haunted him for decades. David stepped onto the porch and saw it, soft, steady, unwavering. The yellow glow illuminated the worn steps, the aging wood, the house that had stood through storms and silence. He felt a weight lift from him, though he could not name it. It was the realization that love waits, quietly, endlessly, for the ones it holds dear. His hands brushed against the plaque Henry had carved before his passing, "For David. The light will stay on." The words, simple and enduring, reached through the years, through absence and mistakes, and into the heart of a man who had finally returned home. For hours, David stood there, gazing into the glow. He imagined his father's quiet presence beside him, felt the pulse of a lifetime of devotion that had endured in silence. He traced the faint scratches in the wood where Henry's hands had rested, the subtle polish on the steps where care had been taken for decades. Every detail spoke of a love that had never wavered, a hope that had never died. When dawn broke, David finally stepped down from the porch, touched the lamp once with reverence, and made certain it remained steadfast. He felt a quiet completion, not of words spoken, not of apologies made, but of understanding that some acts of love are so powerful they outlast everything else. The light, the house, the enduring devotion of his father, these were all he needed to carry forward. And in that light, David realized that love does not demand perfection. It does not insist on presence or repentance. It only asks for patience, for faith, and for the willingness to remain steady through the darkness. The porch lamp, glowing softly against the night, was proof of that. Proof that some bonds cannot be broken by absence, by mistakes, by years of waiting. They exist quietly, faithfully, waiting for the ones who are ready to see them. The house at the end of the quiet road had stood through storms, seasons, and generations. The light had been kept on not out of stubbornness, not out of obsession, but out of love, a love that endured, faithful and patient, waiting for the moment when it could be understood and embraced. David turned to leave, the glow behind him spilling across the steps, and he carried that understanding in his heart, that love, in its purest form, persists beyond time, beyond absence, and beyond even death itself.